Well, good evening and good morning if you're joining us from Japan. We are so excited that so many people, already 40, are joining us, and we know many more are registered for this webinar tonight. My name is David Janes. I'm a very good friend of Dr. Matthew Perry's, and we serve together on a couple of boards. I'm also Executive Director of Global Citizens Initiative, and very excited to welcome you on this 1st of October here in the United States for tonight's webinar about mysteries and stories focused on Commodore Matthew Perry. You're going to get an exciting look into the Perry home. Before we begin, I would like to share a poll with all of you. I hope that you can answer tonight's poll, which asks you a couple of questions about where you're located, how did you hear about this webinar, and if there's other things you would like to know about Dr. Matthew Perry and Commodore Perry. So you should see that poll coming across your screen in just a moment here. Also, at the end of this webinar, there will be a survey that we would very much like you to respond to. One thing I would also, before I welcome Dr. Matthew Perry and tell you a little bit about him and Mikiko Morimura, our two co-hosts tonight, I would also like to just let everyone know that we welcome your engagement in this webinar. We want your questions, we want comments, so chat is open. You can write in Japanese or English, and we would prefer, if you have questions, that you write them in the Q&A. Those can be in English or Japanese as well. And without further ado, let me just welcome Dr. Matt Perry and Mimi Morimura and tell you who they are, and then we're going to share a video and go right to them live in Rhode Island. So Dr. Perry is from Rhode Island, where as a child he obtained an early interest in his ancestor Commodore Matthew C. Perry, who negotiated a treaty of peace and amity between Japan and the United States in 1854. After college, he served in the U.S. Navy aboard a ship in the Western Pacific and made 2 trips to Japan. He then began a career in wildlife research and worked for the U.S. government for 40 years. He retired in 2011 and presently is an emeritus scientist. He remains active as an author of wildlife conservation history, and he writes and lectures about family history, including his ancestor Commodore Perry. Also, hosting tonight's event is Mikiko Mimi Morimura. Miss Mimi has dedicated her life to cross-cultural education. One of her biggest contributions was teaching Japanese at Classical High School in Providence, Rhode Island. At Classical, she ran the program single-handedly for 25 years. She's also brought the local community together by hosting activities such as the Sakura Festival, and she's a board member of the Japan-America Society of Rhode Island, where she helps to facilitate the annual Black Ship Festival. She recently established the Genki Sakura School, where she continues to promote friendship between the United States and Japan. Now I would like to share a YouTube video with you, and we're going to move right from that to the home of Matthew Perry. Please enjoy tonight's webinar. Give me one moment to screen share. Here we go.
You.
Ah!
Great to see you again.
See you. こんにちは、皆さん。
I'm glad you're here and we got a good group. So,
What? We're on the microphone? This is a Perry-san's house. Isn't it amazing? It's there is a little trouble with the microphone right now in the beginning, and then that's okay. It'll be okay. So, Dr. Perry.
great to see you.
Yes.
こ
こんにちは。
んにちは。
And hi.
This is the hallway. You're in the house. So come on in and we'll give you a quick tour.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So this is our living room.
これがリビングルーム。
Originally, there were only 3 rooms in the house. On this floor and then 3 upstairs.
このフロアと3つしか部屋がなかったんですね。3 rooms only in this
Yes.
house? Wow. But this is beautiful.
Big rooms. And each room had a fireplace.
それぞれの部屋にこんな素敵な暖炉があるんですね。
So we had 3 fireplaces on this floor
この
and
階
then
に
3
3つ暖炉があっ
fireplaces
て、
on the
こ
second
の
floor.
2階にも3つ暖炉があって、
And then there's a big fireplace in the basement.
そして下にももっと大きな暖炉がある。すごい。
So what I'd like to do as we walk through the 3 rooms, I want to show you various things that I just want to point out. I can't show everything, but I want to show some of the things that are related to Commodore Perry.
I want to see everything, but he's saying that some of the things that Commodore Perry 関係のものだけ見せていただくということです。すごいですね。なんか本当。じゃあお願いします。
We have a lot of portraits in the house, the reproductions of portraits. Some are originals, but I want to start off talking about Oliver Hazard Perry because he is well known in the United States.
オリバー・ハザード・ペリーさんは長男でいらしたんですけれども、ペリー家の一番アメリカでは彼の方がマティュー・ペリーよりも有名でいらっしゃるんですよね。
And he is the older brother, 8 years older than Commodore Matthew
オリバ
Perry.
ーは
And this is
8歳の
Matthew Perry
マシュー・ペ
over
リー。
here on this wall.
マティュー・ペリー。
So that's the one I'm named for.
この名前を取りました。That's young. He's pretty young, right?
Yeah, he was the 8 years younger than Oliver, and then he's 4 years older than the one I'm descended from, his brother Raymond.
Okay. レイモンドさんが直系でいらっしゃるんですけれども、そのレイモンドさんよりyou said 4 years younger, right? Matthew Perry is the
Yes.
youngest, and he is probably young in this picture.
Yes, that is a younger picture of him. Now, I want to emphasize 2 things in this room, which I think are important in regards to the Japanese connection that we have. One is the whaling oil lamps. Early in the 1800s, whaling was very big in the United States.
1800年の初期にはオイル、捕鯨がとても大きくて、これは
This is a whaling lamp here, whale oil lamp.
鯨油のランプです。すごいですね。
So you had to put whale oil in here, and then it went into both the lamps.
本当に博物館みたい。It's like a museum.
A lot of this whale oil came from Japan, and that was one of the things the United States was very concerned about.
Whale oil came from Japan.
Yes, from the whales that they killed, the whaling ships.
原油は、日本からたくさん来たんですって。And then 1800 is more important, but later?
Later, it went out because of the fact that we discovered oil. So when we discovered oil, whales weren't as important as they had been. So these have been passed down in the family for a long time. And so I have inherited them, and now they're in this house. I want to mention this cane because this cane, I've had this cane since I was a young boy.
子供の頃からのお宝だったんですよ。
This didn't belong to any of the Perrys as far as using it as a cane, but the wood is made from Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry's ship.
さっきのオリバー・ハザード・ペリーの船、エリー湖で戦った船
He was
の木で
famous
できた。
for having his first ship, the Lawrence, was badly bruised during the Battle of Lake Erie in 1812, but he left this ship and it eventually sank, and he went to another ship and was victorious.
1812年のエリー湖の戦いでローレンスという船がもうダメージを受けて沈めなきゃいけなくなったんだけれども、その船の木を取ってこれの杖ができました。
But late in the 1800s, they brought the ship up from the bottom and they made the cane from the wood of that ship. And this has been passed down in my family for a long time.
What does it say?
This is ivory, handle, and silver. And the two inscriptions are don't give up the ship, which is ironic because he did give up his original ship.
Don't give up the ship.
But that was said by James Lawrence, his good friend.
ジェームス・ローレンスさんの言葉ですけれども、it's almost like Oliver's quotes.
Yes.
Yes.
But the other expression that was really big for Oliver Hazard Perry was we have met the enemy and they are ours. And most American students know that. It's different in Japan though, because they know about Matthew Perry.
Yes. So he is more famous in the エリコの戦い。That's good. And then, so ローレンスは沈めちゃったけれども、その後にもう一つの船、What's the name of the name?
He went to the Niagara. He
And
left
then
the Lawrence
he won
and went to
his
the Niagara.
victory after Lawrence.
That's right. His whole squadron moved in, and it was the first time that the British had lost the complete squadron. And that was a big thing at that time.
英国の軍隊をやっつけたというので、もうアメリカンヒーローです。
Yeah, he was an American hero because of what it did is essentially formed our northern boundary with Canada because we control the lakes.
レイクを、あそこの湖をコントロールしていたということですね。次に。
So let's go in the other room. I want to show you some other things in the other room.
次の
We're going to come back to this table
すごい
later, and we'll talk more and show some other pictures. But I want to emphasize a couple of things in here. First of all, this is where they cook. This is a bake oven. And not many homes have this. This is very uncommon. But I just wanted to open this up and show you because this is where they cook.
ここで料理をしたという。
And this was a big room at one time. And they had the heat here from the fireplace, but then all the cooking.
暖炉があって、Where's the firewood? Where's the
Well, the firewood was kept down here and the fire here. But when they got through cooking, they used something like this to get the containers out. So they baking bread just like a pizza.
Yeah, it's like let's have a pizza party here.
Pizza pie. We could make some pizza pie in here.
We can use it now too.
But you have to get the bricks really hot and then push the coals off to the
す
side.
ごく熱くして、そこのその火をつけたその石炭になったものを左に避けて、そこにその右の方にピザ食べ物を。
We'll come back to this room, but I wanted to go into the other living room on this side.
Okay.
Yeah, very nice mantels in all the rooms. This is another living room, and it was a living room all the time when I was a young boy. I grew up here and it's been in the family for a long time. So I want to mention one painting over here. It's a reproduction of a painting. I'm not sure what the original is, but this is Christopher Perry. He's the father of the two Commodores.
そのマティュー・ペリーのお父さん、マティュー・ペリ
both
ーとオリバー
Matthew
の
and Oliver.
お父
That's
さん
his
です。
father. So he was a captain during the Revolutionary War, and then he had raised all his boys. These other pictures are my uncles, and they were all in the military.
軍関係の仕事についていた立派な人たちなんですけれども、私の叔父にあたります。
And if we go back over this way, as we were going out, we can. Oh, that's Raymond. That's just a reproduction, but I'll show you a bigger one of Raymond in a little while. This is Oliver here. But I assembled some artifacts over here, which I think are fairly interesting. These are artifacts that have been in the family, and some of them are more recent. But one that we have just recently is we obtained this, what's called a blunderbuss. This is a type of gun. This is the type of gun that Matthew took to Japan to give to the Japanese. No, Matthew took it to Japan. This is called a flint lock because it has flint in here.
Okay.
And it was more advanced than what the Japanese had. They were using a fuse. But this is so intricate and detailed. This is all inlaid gold. And then this is made of silver. This is all silver here. Walnut stock. But it's quite historic. and this is where they fired the gun. So I'm not gonna fire it right now. This we think this was picked up in the Mediterranean by Matthew Perry when he was on patrol.
地中海に行った時にそこで買ったんじゃないかと思われるんですけれども、and then this you told us about here you put.
Oh yeah, the way this was loaded is very dangerous because they put the powder in first, and then they put padding in, and then put all the balls of quite a few balls they could put in here. And when you shot this, it went scattered. It was quite, that's why it's called a blunderbuss. But Japanese had guns back in the 14 and 1500s. They got them from the Portuguese, but then they expelled the Portuguese. They went for a long period when they closed, the borders were closed, and they did away with the gun. At that time, they went to the sword. So the famous samurai all had swords like this. This is a samurai sword, and this was given to a relative of mine after World War II. The Japanese had to give up all their weapons when we occupied Japan. The only thing they could keep was this piece right here. This is the handguard, what's called the suba in Japanese. And these are now collector items in Japan. When I was there, I've been to Japan several times. I once got a gift. And these are subas. And they came from different families, and they have different inscription on them, and they're very valuable collector items in Japan. So that was a nice gift I got in Japan. And I've gotten a lot of other gifts. Lacquerware that the Japanese gave to Commodore Perry. Not this piece. A friend of mine gave me this, but it's beautiful, beautiful, hard to make. And so Perry got a lot of this lacquerware and a lot of silks. But he was a little disappointed. Here's another one I got with my name on it. This is from another friend of mine. He was disappointed because he didn't get very what he considered valuable gifts. This was beautiful art.
こういうアーツ&クラフトみたいな贈り物はすごく美しくて嬉しかったんだけれども、コモダー・ペリーはちょっとがっくりしたというのは、もっと why was he disappointed?
He wanted to show the Japanese how advanced we were because of the Industrial Revolution. So we had better guns. And we had railroads.
But you said that Matthew Perry wanted to look at the Japanese industry.
He wanted to see, but they didn't have it.
So 日本からもそのような産業的な工業的な工業の技術の贈り物が欲しかったけれども、それはもうなかったんだって。だからそれをもらうことはできなくて、アート&クラフトの素晴らしいものをもらえる。
He actually brought a small railroad and showed the Japanese how it would ride around rails.
鉄道の模型とか、
And he brought a telegraph too. So he was showing how high tech the world had come and the Japanese had been left behind. Because now Japanese have the best rail in the world. You can set your watch by the Japanese rail. This is the medal that was given by the merchants of Boston when he returned.
日本の遠征から帰ってきたときにペリーがボストンの商業組合みたいなところからもらったメダルです。
He was a little disappointed because he didn't get a congressional medal like Oliver had. His older brother got a congressional medal.
他のお兄ちゃんたちはなんか名誉勲章を国からもらっているのにどうして私だけボストンの商業組合からのメダルなんだとちょっとがっくりしたという話。
So that's some of the things I've collected. And there's a picture of Commodore Perry after he came back from Japan. That's what he looked like. He was pretty elderly at that time. He died 4 years later after he came back from Japan. This is one of the paintings or sketch that the Japanese did. They often portrayed him with a lot of hair because they were trying to say that the Westerners were all barbarians.
野蛮人だという西洋人は野蛮人だという印象があって、日本人の画家が描いたペリーさんのイメージはこんなひどいものだったよ。
The person that helped Perry in negotiations really was behind the scenes, and that was Manjiro. Later, we picked up a second name, Manjiro Nakahama.
万次郎中浜さんはもちろん皆さんご存知ですけれども、その時にペリーが日本でネゴシエーションをしていた時はバックステージにいたんですね。
He was very much interested in Americans, and he learned how to speak English, so he was very valuable to the Japanese. And he said, we were not barbarians. So we can thank Manjiro for bringing that back to Japan.
So he spent many years, half of his life in America, and then he knew that Americans are not barbarian.
And he learned a lot. And now Manjiro is well known in Japan and also in Massachusetts, Fairhaven, where he lived.
そうですね。マサチューセッツ、ここから1時間ほど行ったところに万次郎が住んでいたニューヘイブン、フェアヘイブンの町があります。
So why don't we go in the other room? And I want to take this. We'll talk about these later. I'll take these with us. We'll go in the other room. We'll walk out briefly to the kitchen because I want to show a portrait and a painting. This portrait is of Matthew Perry's brother. This is the one I'm descended from. This is an original oil painting on wood.
オリジナルのドクター・ペリーの直系の、おじさんですよね。だから4代先の。
Yes, he's my great-great-grandfather.
レイモンド・ペリーさん。だからマティュー・ペリー、he's older than Matthew.
Yes, he's older than Commodore Perry. Yes, but that's Raymond.
レイモンドさん。
And he became a captain. Here, he only has one epaulet, but later on he got two.
右肩にしかこの腕章じゃなくて肩の章があるんですね。
He's got a lot more hair than I have.
似て
But
ま
I
す
always
ね。
salute him when I come by.
可愛く似てま
No,
したね。
I don't think we look alike. No,
Very, very handsome.
no, we were. Yeah, he was. So now we're in the kitchen. This is our modern day kitchen. You saw the ancient kitchen in the other room. This was probably put on in the later 1800s after the Levi DeWolf, who owned this house originally, after he had moved on.
ドウォルフさん、ドウォルフ家というのがもともと持っていた家だったんだけど、その後ペリー家が入って、1800年代に this part was built in 1800s?
In the 1800s, and we don't know exact date, but it's probably early to mid. And it was when plumbing came in. Plumbing didn't come in actually until the late 1800s. So originally we had a sink that came out. It was a stone sink.
そうそうそう。水がこういう流れる水道なんかがなかったわけだから、あそこに岩のセメントみたいなシンクがあったんですよね。
Yeah, it's an actual big stone sink. Now we took it out in the backyard and use it as a sandbox.
That is also like an old looking like a chimney, or is it?
Yeah, that's a chimney that was in the kitchen.
あそこでthey cooked it over there too, right?
Yeah.
Now they have a real oven, but they used to.
This is a fairly well-known painting. This was done by William Heine. He was a German artist.
ウィリアム・ハイネスというドイツ人の画家が描いたとても有名な絵です。
And he was fairly young when he was on the ship. He was only in his 20s, but he was an outstanding artist. And Commodore Perry picked him up in China.
とても若くて20歳代だったんだけれども、ドイツ人だったヘインズを中国でピックアップ、中国から私の一緒に来なさいという。
He did hundreds of paintings for Commodore
本
Perry's
当何百枚の
reports.
絵を描きました。This is the scene of
This is the scene of Yokohama when Perry came to make a treaty with Japan. He had already delivered the letter in 1853.
This is Yokohama in the 1853.
Yeah,
Right?
this is
Yokohama
actually 1854. He delivered the paper, the letter from President Fillmore, but then he came back the next
そうで
year.
すね。手紙大統領から将軍への手紙を渡したのが1853年、そしてもう一度帰ってきたのが54年、その時の54年の時の横浜上陸の絵です。
Yokohama. It's a lot different now, but that tree is still there.
今とは全然風景が違うと思いますけど、この松の木っていうのは今でも同じ松の木が未だに生えてる。本当
Yeah.
That's like
You can see the ships out here. He had 8 ships and he brought them as close to shore as he
8
could.
隻のね、船をもう一番海岸沿いまでできるだけ近くまで止めようということだったんですけれども、今では、what about the line now? What's this now?
So it's different. Now the land goes out a little farther.
昭和ラインがずっともっと船のところぐらい
And Yokohama, as you know, became a major port in the 1800s and the 1900s and traded a lot with silk out of Yokohama.
1800年代、1900年代にはもう大きな港として。
But this is a print I wanted to show you. Was there something else you wanted to? Yeah. Okay. This is one of 6 prints that Heine had done, a painting that he had done that were released after Perry came back from Japan and they were sold and given out.
ペリーがアメリカに帰ってきてから、one of the 6
Well, this is one of 6 different paintings this size.
この同じようなシリーズになってる。
It's very, very rare to have all 6 together.
そりゃそうよね。
But this is just one of
これは
them.
1個
But
だけ
this
で、
is
6つも全部揃えてるっていうことはほとんどないんですね。
this is his landing in Shimoda.
下田の上陸の時の風景です。
So he was allowed to go to 2 ports, Shimoda and Hakodate.
ペリーは下田と函館に行くことを許されていて、これは下田の絵。
But whenever he went ashore, he made sure he was well taken care of and well protected. He brought his men in, and he was entertained very well by the Japanese eventually.
とてもよく世話をしてもらって、エンターテインなんかご馳走もいただいて、守られて、ペリーはよくしてもらったそうです。
All right, I think that's enough. Why don't we go in the other room now? Can we put this back down? All right, that's good. This doesn't belong to me. This belongs to a cousin of mine. I just borrowed it so
実
you
は
can
私の
see
いと
this.
このものなんですけれども、皆さんにお見せしようと思って借りてきました。
Oh, this is the bathroom that came in. The plumbing came in the late 1800s.
水道が1800年の後
So
半。
that's an old bathtub. It hasn't been around that long, but it's been around a
かわ
long
いいね
time.
Cute bathroom. Okay, so shall we sit down? Yeah. Shall we sit down? Maybe you can pin my laptop there. You can pin me. So let's talk about more.
We'll go through some quick slides here and give you a little more information about the Perrys. This is Captain Raymond Perry that we have the original portrait on behind me here. We can move that over a bit. We
This
can
way.
show that portrait right behind my head there.
先ほど見せていただいたポートレート、本当の油絵の同じ写真ですね。
And he was older than Commodore Matthew Perry, but that's the one I'm descended from.
Okay. 直径のね。次。Next, please.
And this is the older brother we talked about earlier, Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry, very well known in the United States because of some of the quotes that he made, and so they're well known here.
アメリカで一番よく知られているオリバー・ペリーさん。
One of the things to notice here, notice the little red hair. He had all the Perrys came from an Irish heritage, and some of them had a little red hair, which we're going to talk about briefly later.
ちょっと赤い髪の毛がしてるというのが、赤毛であるというのがお気づきだと思うんですけれども、ペリーというのはアイリッシュ系の名前で、そのペリーさんは、彼はその赤毛を引き継いでいるということですね。
And
次じゃあお願いします。Next, please.
this is the earlier portrait of Matthew Perry. This was done in 1835 when he was a lieutenant commander. 18
18
The portrait was
こ
done
の
then.
ポートレートが1835だ若い時の写真ですね。ポートレートだからオイルペイン
Oil painting, yeah. And next.
次お願い。Next.
This is what the Commodore looked like after the trip to Japan. He was very tired. He only lived 4 years after the expedition. But this is a photograph, an early photograph that was taken
こ
of
の時
him.
は写真の技術がもう発展していて、これは日本から帰ってきた時、ちょっとその健康を壊して、ちょっと年寄りに見えていますけれども、このコモドア・ペリーです。Next, please.
This is Commodore Perry's wife. This is Jane Slidell Perry.
ついにやっと私はさっきからずっと思ってたんですけれども、very handsome, very good looking, brave, wonderful, achieving, successful 3 sons. And then where is the woman? I mean, there should be like the mother, wife, and then I needed to talk about this. It's so important. Where is the record? I even went through it. 女性のね、記録が全く残ってないんですよね。で、finally, I'm so glad to meet this Jane Slidell Perry 夫人。
She was very close to Matthew. They had a very close relationship throughout their life. And even though he was at sea for a long time, he was a very faithful husband. He read the Bible all the time at sea, and he was a very religious man.
とても熱心な宗教にペリーさんはバイブルを毎日聖書を読んで、faithful な中心的な信仰深い、そして奥様にも愛を持ったご主人だったということです。Any other information? And then what did you say?
Well, we're going to talk a little more about them as we move along.
I hope that somebody will write about.
She was very
Jane.
private, and actually she got rid of a lot of the love letters she had with him, and that was really too bad. The historians talk about that.
だからラブレターがやっぱりペリーさんから届いたらしいんですけれども、やっぱそういうのとても個人的な方だったんで、そういうのをパブリックにしなかったんです。
She felt they were private.
そりゃそうですよね。
So she didn't want to share them with the whole world.
そう世界中に自分の主人から来たラブレターを見せるなんて嫌だとか言って、How about, do I even receive any love letter from my husband? And then do I want to show this to the world? I would love to, you're right, if it comes. All right, now, so let's, next, please.
This is what I wanted to talk about because this is what's called a mourning brooch, and it was their hair. This is the hair of Matthew and Jane that was braided together.
マティューの髪の毛とジェーンさん、奥さんの髪の毛を編み込んだブローチです。で、喪に服した時のブローチとも言われています。
And you can see, we think this is Jane's hair on the left. It's a little gray, dark hair, and we think that's Matthew's hair on the right, the reddish
左
hair.
側がちょっとグレーに混じったのがジェーンのヘアで、髪の毛で、右の赤いのがペリーさんのだろうと。
But what's really interesting about this brooch, it's about the size of an egg, a little larger than an egg, but this was given to Japan by the Perry descendants in 1928.
卵ぐらいの大きさのブローチなんですけれども、面白いことにペリーのその子孫によって日本にねプレゼントされてしまったんですって。
And that brooch is now in the museum in Japan, the National Museum in Tokyo.
東京国立博物館の所蔵ということになっています。And let's talk about this diamonds.
Yeah, there's some diamonds around the edge. The Commodore Perry's daughter had married into the Tiffany family. And so the Tiffanys were very interested in giving some of these private possessions back to Japan, but they always put them in very nice arrangements.
マシューのyou said daughter,
Yes.
娘さんはティファニーファミリーに結婚して、そこだからそういうダイヤモンドなんかもたくさん手に入ったみたいですね。And then jewelry designer の方、I think we have a jewelry designer in our audience, and then it must be very interesting for them. We should make something like this. It is such a loving thing. It must be very difficult for both of them, Jane and Matthew to be apart for such a long time
That's
and then
right.
keep faithful each other. And this must be like so intimate. And then it's just so wonderful at this day and age, especially. We should start this habit, custom again sometime. Yes. こんなね、素晴らしいことができるなんて、もうこういうハビットをみんなで一緒にまた始めたらいいんじゃないかなって思いますけれども。Next, please.
This is the ring. Now, this is also at the National Museum in Tokyo. This is Commodore Perry's wedding ring.
これも国立博物館に寄贈されてしまいました。Next.
And the descendants of Commodore Perry gave other items like this button that you see on the bottom left and also the braid that's on the right. So these items are all in the Tokyo Museum. Unfortunately, they're not on display, so it's very difficult to see them.
これを今見ることができないんですってどういうわけか。で、東京博物館にこれらのアイテムも全部所蔵されています。Next.
I want to talk briefly about the button. Yeah, go next slide, please. Because the button is something I learned about, not that button, but another button when I was in Hakodate. And when they built a statue for Commodore Perry at Perry Square in Hakodate, it's the second largest statue of him in the world. The largest is in Newport, Rhode Island. But this one is missing a button.
この銅像は、ペリーの銅像は世界で2番目に大きな銅像で、まず一番大きいのはニューポートにある銅像です。で、小寺美智子さんという方が作られたんですけれども、ミッシングボタンというものです。Next.
The reason this was
next slide.
The reason this was of interest to me is because I had never heard about this, and I spoke to other historians in Japan, and they didn't know about it. But apparently the story was that he had a loose button that was hanging from his uniform, and he tore it off and gave it to a man on the street.
この話っていうのはあまり私も聞いたことがなかった、しばらく聞いたことがなかったんだけれども、ミッシングボタン、バックグラウンドのお話っていうのは、取れかけのボタン、この軍服の取れかけのボタンがあったんですって。で、それをなんか本当に興味深く見ている男性がいて、その人にストリートで見ている人に、マティ・ペリーは自分のボタンをもぎ取って、それを上げてしまったと。このお話はその。
So this button was so impressed the local people in Hakodate. This woman who did the sculpture, she found out about this story and she wanted that to be part of his statue because it reflects the kindness that he had when he was there and the love for the Japanese people that went through a lot of his activities. Even though he was using force, he made a lot of friends there.
ペリーさんはこのペリーさんの性格、温かい、優しい、親切な思いやりのある気持ちっていうのを表したくて、その彫刻家の美智子さんはわざわざこれを作ったというこのように表したということです。Next.
This is the route that Commodore Perry took when he left in 1852 from Virginia. Went across the Atlantic, then around Africa, around India, and then came up to China and stopped in Okinawa at Nara, and then he went out to the Bonin Islands.
これはマティー・ペリーが、ノーフォーク、バージニア州からの日本に来た時のルートです。で、日本の東京に着く、下田に着く前に、ボーニーアイランド、小笠原諸島、ボーニーアイランドでは英語では小笠原諸島のことをボーニーアイランドと呼んでいたらしいんですけれども、そこに立ち止まっています。
And the reason he went there is he knew that island was occupied by Americans and also some other Westerners from England and Europe.
その当時、そのボーニーアイランドというのはアメリカ人や他のインターナショナルのコミュニティがもう入植していたということをペリーは知っていました。Next.
So that island is called Chichijima. Here's a close-up of it. It's 600 miles south of Tokyo.
東京のメトロポリタンエリアからは600マイルも南に下がったところにその父島があります。
And Perry purchased 50 acres of land there as a coal depot. He wanted to leave coal there so ships could pick it up if they were running steam engines, and he was very interested in steam.
50エーカーもの大きな土地を個人的に自分で購入しました。for the coal station だから石炭のために、石炭のステーションを作るために。
They needed tremendous amounts of coal at that time to run the steam engines.
スティームエンジンの蒸気船を運営していくためには、本当に多くの石炭がいったから、そのステーションとしては大事な場所だったんですね。
But he did another friendship action there. He gave a flag, United States flag, to the senior man there. His name was Nathaniel Savory.
その時に、そこで立ち寄った時に、ナタニエル・セイボリーさんという方に、その島を島のリーダー格の方だったんですけれども、その人にマティオ・ペリーは自分の持っていたアメリカの星条旗をあげました。差し上げました。
We had a 31-star flag at that time because California had just been admitted into the Union, and he gave the flag to the man as a sign of friendship.
31の星のついたカリフォルニアが国に入ったところだったので、31の星のついた星条旗を友情のためにと言って、そのセイボリー家のナサニエルさんに差し上げたということです。
And Savory's family passed this on. They were very proud of it for many, many years.Until the military occupied Chichijima during World War II. And at that time, they burned the flag.
セボリー家はその国旗を本当に大切していたにもかかわらず、もうその父島が日本の軍下にさらされることになって、ついにその国旗を燃やさなければいけないということになってしまいました。Next,
okay.This is descendants of Nathaniel Savory. These are his two oldest sons. And they were posing here in 1927 with some of their children.
はい。セボリ家の子孫の写真です。Next.
And recently, this is an interesting connection because recently the man in the middle with the red tie learned about the fact.that the Savory family had burned the American flag. And he felt very bad about this because he knew it was a family cherished item.
この真ん中にいらっしゃる方、近藤明さんとおっしゃるんですが、近藤明さんがそのペリーからもらった大事な国旗をセイボリー家の方々が燃やさなければいけなくなってしまったという悲しいお話を新聞の記事で読まれて、本当に悲しいと言って。
So what he did is he had a 31-star flag made in Japan and he sent it to descendants of the Savory in Chichijima, a long way.From where he was living on the island of Shiboku.
近藤さんはその話があまり悲しくて、同じその時にセイボリさんが受け取ったという同じ旗のレプリカを研究して作られて、それをその父島まで四国の愛媛県から送られました。Next.
So I wrote to Kondo-san and I told him I thought that was a great act of kindness that he did. And he was happy to get my letter. And this is the Savory man that received the flag that he sent to Chichijima.
セイボリー高志さん、高志さんがその旗を受け取られた5代目かな、先祖の松江の父島にいらっしゃいます。今日も多分来てくださってるんだと思うんですよ。見ていただけるだけでとても嬉しいです。Next.
Now this is Kondo-san reading my letter. And I really thought this was really great. And it showed the great interest that he had in receiving my letter.
近藤さんがペリーさんからのお礼状を読んでいらっしゃるところの写真の、これも愛媛新聞に出たり、もうニュースペーパーにいろんなところに出てるんですね。朝日新聞もはもちろんのこと、英語版、朝日新聞の英語版にも出ていましたし、たくさんスクラップがあるんですよね。
He found out about the burning of the flag from a newspaper article he read.Because it was coming in wrapping material for watch supplies. He does watch repair work.
時計の修理のために古新聞に包まれていた古新聞を見たときに、 その旗を焼いてしまったというその悲しい記事が出てきたんですね。So you said that he is a watchman.
Yes, and so I told him I have a watch, a pocket watch that belonged to Commodore Perry, and he got all excited about that.
So
he wanted to repair it for me.
とても大事な懐中時計を持ってるんですね。
This is the watch that Commodore Perry took to Japan. And you can see on the left side, it was inscribed to Commodore M.C. Perry on the frigate Mississippi. He went in 1852, Japan.
これは全部その刻印が書いてあって、What are the names? Matthew Perry.
Well, he originally belonged to Oliver Hazard Perry.
オリバー・ペリーさんからマシュー・ペリーの名前も全部入ってるんですね。
And then it was passed on to my relative behind me, Raymond Perry.
私のその
He had it in the Mediterranean.
のレイモンドさんが地中海にも持っていた。
And then Perry took it to Japan.
ペリーはコモドアはマテュー・ペリーは日本にも持っていた。すごい。
And so this has been in the family for a long time. I've never had the money to repair it, but Kondo-san was very gracious. He said he would repair it for me if I brought it.
近藤さん、it's nice to hear. 近藤さんは日本に持って行ったらこれは修理できるんじゃないかっておっしゃってくださってたんですよ。Okay, so there is something we would like to see.
Well, I'd like to show it to Kondo-san. He hasn't seen it yet. I'm hoping to show it to him next month, but I'll show it to him right now if he's there.
Stop share screen now. Stop share screen, and we would like to see the real watch.
Well, here's the real watch, and I hope Kondo-san is listening because this is what it looks like, and it was inscribed on the case. So the case and the watch were separate, which is really unique because it shows the inscription on the back here. Maybe, yeah, there, it's a little hard to show it here. But I'll show it in person when I go to Japan.
今度日本に次の11月に行った時には近藤さんに必ず見ていただきたいものなんですよね。まあ今日はオンラインでしかお見せできないんですが。
I told Kondo-san that the watch didn't work. He wanted to repair it for me. And I said, well, unfortunately, it doesn't work. Because I took it to a jeweler and they couldn't repair it. If you bend this down more, then I can show it. Yeah. Oh, it's locked on. Okay.
No.
I just hold it up.
Yeah. Okay.
So I want to just open it up and show Kondo-san because it's really unique. It's all gold and it's beautifully inscribed on the inside. I don't know if you can see that, but it was inscribed. It was made in 1802 in England, Liverpool, England.
82年にリバプール、英国のリバプールで作られたものなんですって。
But it's all rusted inside. So it doesn't work anymore. So we wondered, where did it get all rusted? Did it happen at Lake Erie, Mediterranean, or Japan?
エリー湖でしょうか、それとも地中海でしょうか、それとも日本で錆びちゃったんでしょうか。
But then we realized if it were rusted and didn't work, nobody would use it. They'd stick it in a drawer and forget about it. So we think it got rusted when it was with my uncle. Right here in Bristol, Rhode Island, in 1938, my uncle had it in the house, which is only a half a mile from my house here, and it got flooded.
1938年の大洪水があったんですね。ロードアイランドのこのブリストルで。だから、それまでは多分みんな使っていたんだけれども、私のおじがその時に塩水につけちゃって錆びちゃったんじゃないかと、そういうふうに私は思っています。
So anyhow, this is the pocket watch that was used by the Commodores and also my descendant, and I'm going to take it to Japan and show the Japanese and also Kondo-san.
来月、私はこれを日本にも持っていきます。レイモンドも使っていた。オリバーも使っていた。そして、コモドー・ペリーも日本に持っていったというこの時計を私も日本に持っていくつもりです。
That'll be a lot of fun.
とても楽しみにしています。
And I received, when I was there, a nice letter from Kondo-san. I was so surprised when I received this letter. He responded to my letter, but the letter he sent me was in Japanese. And so I asked my friend Mimi if she could translate it for me. And she did. And we just want to show you some of the...
I just wanted to show you before we meet. 平さん、こんな素晴らしい、please pin me や、こんな巻き手紙ですね。こんなの掛け軸みたいなもうクラスプがついていて、we don't get to see things like this even in Japan that often. And it's very unique in America. And this is the form of very distinguished letter.
Warm friendship.
Warm friendship and so official. 背景、ドクター・マシュ・カルブリエス・ペリー様。お手紙を賜りましてありがとうございます。心より御礼申し上げます。すごいでしょ？ This is like the highest level of thank you letter. I can't even find the English translation equivalent for such expression of profound gratitude. The handwriting is beautiful, isn't it? Even if you don't read Japanese, this is like such a piece of art how he writes. And then he says, he talks about the 正常期、見えますか？正常期のことを新聞の記事で見られまして、そのことをわざわざ米国よりお便りをいただき、お褒めいただき、ありがとうございました。Like this, okay? And you saw my newspaper article, and I am so happy that you're commending my kind of action of kindness. My respect also goes to you as an active biologist. And even though President Fillmore allowed Commodore Matthew Perry, hold on, it's a little too, okay, that's good. もうちょっとこっちかな。Yes, right here, ワシン条約のこと出てきたから。Commodore Perry was allowed to use force to achieve their goal, to negotiate the treaty. But he did not even shoot one cannon, and he succeeded to reach the agreement for US-Japan Peace and Amity Treaty. He did very peacefully. We can tell the Commodore's great personality filled with love and peace. That is the spirit of entire Perry's family. And the world definitely need this spirit, the Commodore Matthew's spirit and entire Perry's family. Now I would like to present, Kondo-san saying, I would like to present to the Star of Spangled Flag of 1853 to express my gratitude to you.
Oh, great.
And we would like to meet, I would like to definitely meet you, Dr. Perry.
Well, I'm looking forward. Arigato gozaimasu.
Kondo-san could come up. Do you think Kondo-san, we can meet Kondo-san on the online in this webinar?
Kondo-san,
that'd be great.
If you want to turn your camera on, Kondo-san, we'd welcome you.
That would be fantastic.
So it's morning there. It's evening here in the United States, but they're just waking up in Japan now. So I hope he's able to.
日本は今朝ですよね。今もでももう何時？今はほとんど9時かな、午前9時。
そうです、その通り。
あきら近藤って出てきました。
はい。
ワクワク。
はい。もう出とる。森村道子様。
Well, we got his name there, good.
そのビデオっていうのをつけていただくっていうことできますかね。左下にあると思うんですが、左下にビデオのこんなアイコンマークがあるのがあるんですけど、ちょっと無理かな。どうしよう。
the Kondo-san there.
近藤さん、
おはようございます。おはようございます。
ピン、he's there. こんにちは。近藤さん来てくださいました。David, can you pin him?
That's good.
わあ、時計がたくさんある。Look at those clocks on the back.
Oh, he's got plenty of clocks and watches.
こんにちは、近藤さん。
森村道子さん、今日はお世話になります。
All right.
面白かった？
もう勉強になりました。本当に。
よかったです。
非常にお世話になります。今日は感激しております。
今度お会いでMatthew Perry さん is going to the 愛媛 after he goes to 父島 and then he will go to 愛媛県まで近藤さんに会いに時計を持っていらっしゃるんですよ。That you're going to 愛媛 to bring your the clock.
Oh, I will bring it.
ありがとうございます。
だから本当で実でインパーソンでお目にかかることができるんですね。ちょっと暗い？
ドクター・マシュー・カルブレール・ペリー様。
はい、ドクターマシュー。
ありがとう。感激しております。感謝、感謝です。感謝です。ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございます。
じゃあ次にもう一人スペシャルのお客様がいるのですけれども、ありがとうございました。近藤さん。Thank you very much. So he will see you in Japan. Okay. Thank you. So now we talk about the new development of the Perry family, and then it's not only 1800, 1853年だけじゃなくて、it's going towards the future.
Oh.
So what's the future for Perry's family? Do we have another guest?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Okay. Do we have another guest?
I'd love to see if we have one of my descendants.
The messages are coming over.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Perry here, and if you want to turn your camera on, that would be lovely.
Very nice, Dad.
I don't know how. It says
we're running out of time, but just if you can stay for a few more minutes after 8 o'clock, and then we can go over to the question and answers and some more excitement.
Make her a co-host. Can you make her a co-host?
Can I make her a co-host? Athena, can you help? Georgia Perry is co-host now. Yes.
Well, it won't come on.
We have a very, very cute guest now, and I am so looking forward to meet her and then introduce her to all the audience.
And maybe we'll get her to Japan someday.
Someday, she would love to do that. Here she is. Here she is. Who is this? Okay, the camera on to. Who is this?
Oh, that's
Hello.
Adeline. Hi, Adeline.
Adeline ちゃんです。Adeline can you volume up a little bit? Adeline さん、how old are you? おいくつですか? How old are you, Adeline?
7.
7 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and then who is this man? Who is this man to you?
My grandpa.
Oh, of course. Is he a nice, and then he gives you a lot of candies, right? Oh,
we have another
so you want to go
too.
to Japan? And who is this?
That looks like Nathaniel.
Nathaniel. Nathaniel Perry.
Yes.
Oh, how happy to have you all in this webinar. And then, yes, and do you speak Japanese?
You say.
ありがとう。こんにちは。恥ずかしいね。She was not shy at all when I saw her on the 4th of July. And she's a little shy today, but she is the cutest thing. Do you want to go to Japan sometime? Yes, of course.
Good.
You will be very, very popular in Japan. Everybody will love you. Thank you. So I will hope to see you soon again. Thank you for showing up. Everybody, どうぞよろしく. Now, it's getting close to the end of our webinar, and thank you very much for staying with us. Would you like to talk about CIE a little bit? The CIE quickly?
Oh, yes.
CIE,
I just wanted to mention that we're going to Japan next month as part of the cultural exchange. Is called John Mongerow Whitfield Center for International Exchange. And it's a great thing that they do every other year, go to Japan, and then the next year they come to the United States. We usually take about 100 people over there. Mm-hmm. And if you're interested in traveling to Japan, you can't beat this way of traveling. The prices are really good because it's well subsidized by a lot of different big corporations. Mm. So I encourage you to look into that. We still have some time. If anybody wants to go to Japan next month, they can sign up right now, today or tomorrow. Sign up, register, and we're going to Chichijima, and we're going to have a lot of exciting things happen while we're in Japan.
This is the oldest organization, cultural international exchange organization, you told me.
Yes, the relationship between Mongerow and Whitfield goes back to the 1840s.
万次郎さんからの、万次郎とウィットフォールド船長のから始まったこの国際交流団体なんですけれども、万次郎家の中浜家の方もゲストで今日はどこかでこのウェビナー見てくださってるんですよね。 で、今度日本に行ったら、本当にお目にかかるのを楽しみにしています。そして、it's not only the Chichijima trip, but if you live in Japan or Tokyo, there is a forum, there is a reception on November, I think it's 5th, 11月5日に竹芝っていう横浜でレセプションがあるんですよ。その時に本当のインパーソンで、ドクター・ペリーにもお会いできるし。
I'll be there, and also descendants of Manjiro, Kyo Nakahama. She'll be there, and also descendants of Whitfield, Scott Whitfield.
すごいでしょこの、草のね、交流会。で今、チャットで、ちか青木さん、今回の、このウェビナーでもとってもたくさんいろいろ手伝っていただいたんですけれども、こちらの、お問い合わせ先の E メールもいただいておりますので、また、we have the follow-up email that we can send it to everybody about this organization. Thank you. Anything that, Chika-san, if you needed to add, please do so. On the chat. Okay, and then let me just okay, let's go to this. So I just wanted to tell you about the Black Ship Festival in Rhode Island. It's the next year. It's going to be the 40th anniversary, and it's right here in Bristol, right at the park over there, and then also in Newport. And so that's the only one organization, the Japan American Society, that celebrate Commodore Matthew Perry and Black Ship, except the Yokosuka and Shimoda. There's some other places in Japan celebrate Black Ships Festival. So this is very special. So that too, come to it. I hope to see you here. Right. All right. So I think we are running out of time. And then if you can stay for the question and answers, David, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, David.
Thank you so much. We do have a few questions, and we welcome everyone in the audience to please ask questions. You can write them in the Q&A in English or Japanese. But to get started, the first question is, I heard that the Tokugawa shogunate sent some sumo wrestlers to meet Commodore Perry and his people. I wonder what they thought of the sumo wrestlers and if they got to watch any exhibition sumo matches. So Matt,
Yes, I can answer that. He definitely did watch the wrestling when he went ashore. And I got to admit, though, according to his narrative, he wasn't too impressed because, of course, it's quite a shock for Americans when they first see sumo wrestlers because it's so different. But one of the things they encouraged him to do, they came up and they wanted him to punch them in the belly. And he was a little taken back by that, I think. Yeah. But he did see the exhibition, and he gave a lot of shows himself, various shows on the ship.
日本でね, so he saw the sumo wrestlers in Japan.
Yes.
Okay, we want to go on to the next one, please.
Sure. Thank you so much. So the next one was about the letter that you brought out, the beautiful letter. And the question is really, how long would it take to write something like that? Kondo-san
has to answer to this one. I would take it for entire life if I had to write it, if I could even write it. This I can tell that we practice calligraphy from the 4th grade in kindergarten. In elementary school in Japan usually, and then we do learn. And then there's like a calligraphy club and things like this. But this level of handwriting is just amazing. And then he came into 2 different roles. So I'm sure for Kondo-san, we would like to know, Kondo-san. Maybe we can follow up with that question and then put it in our email. Yeah. Thank you for a great question.
That is a good question. A lot of time.
Thank you. We're if anyone else in the audience has a question, please we'll stay on for another minute or two. You're welcome to ask. Let me ask a question to you, Matt, if I could. Tell us a little bit in the audience here about growing up in the Perry family. I'm so curious, when did you start to hear stories about Commodore Matthew Perry and your descendants? Was that something when you were very young, you started to learn about?
Definitely when I was young. My dad wanted me to know who I was named for and how we were related. And I have 5 sisters. And so I was the only male in the family. And a lot like in Japan, sometimes the males get a little more recognition than the females. Like Mimi-san mentioned earlier, it's good to recognize Jane and all the great females in the world. But I did get some special attention, and Dad realize I was interested. So I was interested in an early age, but it got sort of embarrassing when the teachers call you in the front of the room and you have to give a little lecture.
子供の頃からやっぱり自分の名前はどこから来たものかとか、そういうことは父親からよく聞いて、とても興味を持っていました。そして、でも学校の教室で名前を呼ばれて、そこでレクチャーしなきゃいけないなんていうようなことになったときは、ちょっと嫌だったけどって。
So that's from early on. But then I was a biologist all my life. It's really just been in the last 10 years involved with the Center for International Exchange, where I got really interested in learning more about Japanese culture.
Yeah, thank you for that, Matt. And what's really neat and moving about this particular webinar is so many members of your family are here and they're writing great things in chat. So hello to all of you. Let me ask, there's a couple other questions coming in, so let me get to them. One is, did Commodore Perry learn to speak Japanese?
Did he? No, I don't think he knew Japanese. He does mention it a couple of times in the narrative. Interestingly, he knew about Manjaro being in Massachusetts. And he went to Massachusetts and asked about the young boy from the Sandwich Islands, because Hawaii at that time was known as the Sandwich Islands, and that's where Manjaro had come from. So he knew about him, but he never made contact with Manjaro. And as far as I know, he never got involved with learning any language or any of the words. It's very difficult. I know just a few words.
Thanks so much. There's another question here. Mimi, just so you know, you're sharing your laptop screen. So, but there's another question here about, can you tell the audience when the Perry family connected with the Belmont family?
Yeah, that's a great question, because at that time, just to mention again about the females didn't really have a lot of say back in the 1800s when Commodore Perry was raising his children. But the females were respected, or the males were expected to take care of the females at that time. And so a lot of times, if your family had a good name, like the Perry family had at that time because of Oliver, they were able to marry very well. Mm-hmm. And so one of them married a Belmont. That was Caroline. She married a Belmont, and then another one married a Tiffany. And that's how the Tiffany's get involved with some of the gifts that we've given to Japan.
Tiffany 家であるとか、ベルモント家と、ベルモント is another big family in New England.
Belmont's a big family in New England.
やっぱりペリーだとか結婚するときに、そのやはり大きな家族の名前があると、そういう家族同士の結婚がある。場合もあります。日本当時はやはりアメリカで男性の方が強くて、男性は女性をプロテクトしなければいけない、世話しなければいけないというふうな価値観で過ごしていました。
Interestingly, the Belmonts helped Perry financially, because being on a government salary, he was never really wealthy. But his son-in-laws helped him several times with buying a property, and they loaned him money, so that was very helpful.
Well, there's now many questions are coming in, but I think we can get through them quickly here. So another one is about food. Do you know what Commodore Perry might have been eating when he was in Japan? Was he eating Japanese food, and did he like it?
Well, there's another question. That's a good question, because unfortunately, I like to say that Commodore Perry enjoyed Japan as much as I do, but I can't say that. Because he did complain about the food, and he did say that you can't beat beef or mutton when it comes to a meal. So I think he probably got a little more fish than he was expecting.
魚をやっぱり食べて肉と羊の肉の方がいいよってマティ・ペリーが he said.
What?
No, that's okay. All right, so
so a couple other quick ones here. How many trips have you made to Japan?
I've been over there 11 times. Wow. Twice when I was in the Navy. I served during the Vietnam era in the 1960s, and we made 2 trips to Japan. That's when I went to some of the places where Perry had visited, and that's one of my goals whenever I go. I love to visit places where Perry has walked. I walked on Perry Lane in Shimoda, and it was quite a warm feeling to be walking on the same street that Commodore Perry walked on.
11回も日本には行っていますけれども、ペリーの行ったところ全部に行ってみたい。そして下田ではペリーの道にも歩いてみたときはちょっとやっぱりノスタルジックな気持ちになりました。
Um,
Yeah, I've been going to the summits since 2009.
Wow.
So it's every other year, and then I've made a couple of other special trips to Hokkaido and other Nagasaki. I've been to Nagasaki and both Hiroshima also.
Matt, thank you for that. There's a question here, a curiosity about what Commodore Perry died from.
Well, he suffered from rheumatoid arthritis throughout the trip. And one of the things that made Perry successful was he avoided contact with the Japanese originally. He was very mysterious. They did not see him. He refused to talk to the early commissioners that came out because he thought they were lower rank. And he insisted on talking to people at his rank.
コモドー・ペリーは、リウマチを患って亡くなったんですね。
So he confined himself to the cabin a lot because he had rheumatoid arthritis, but then he was also being keeping himself mysterious and away from the Japanese. And then when he came back, he was suffering from arthritis and then didn't live very long after his return.
マティ・ペリーが成功したうちの理由の一つには、ちょっとこう隠れていた、キャビンにいつもいて、人にはすぐに出て行って話したりはしなかったという話です。So that's because of the rheumatoid. Yeah. 病気であったということもありますけれども。
So I think for the last question, there's two, but I'll combine them because they're both about the Savory family. So one is, do you have any pictures of Nathaniel Savory? And then another question is, where in the U.S. did the Savory family come from?
They came from Massachusetts. As far as pictures, I haven't seen one of Nathaniel. We have that one picture that we showed in the slideshow of his two sons, and that was a lot later, 1927. So I'm not sure, when Perry went there and met with them, they did not have photography. It's amazing. The Japanese didn't have it. We were just getting started with it, with the daguerreotype, the French type of photography. It wasn't until our Civil War that we really got good with photography, with Matthew Brady and some of the other great advances we were making in photography. So as far as I know, we don't have one. We've also been looking, the Japanese are real interested in pictures of Manjiro, and that's been a big mystery too. They'd love to see some early photographs of Manjiro.
万次郎の写真もないし、セーボリー家の写真もあまりないと、やはり写真の技術が発展していなかったからです。
Well, let me ask you as we get ready to close out here, and I want to thank the audience for sticking with us. Most people have stayed with us 12 minutes or so after the hour. But let me just ask Mimi and Matt if you have any final words or final things you'd like to share with us before we close out what has been an amazing event.
Well, from my perspective, I'll just say it's been a pleasure for me to meet so many great people like Mimi-san here in Rhode Island, of all places. I meet an interesting Japanese woman, and the reason I met her is because she is a videographer, and she's taken some great videos of her trips and lectures on Commodore Perry. And so people notified me about the work she was doing. She's bragging about my ancestor, which I'm pretty impressed with. But then also in Japan, I've met a lot of historians and people who are very interested. It's a big subject among historians in Japan. They're constantly asking me questions, which makes me do my own history.
I am very lucky that I'm very grateful that I do have a lot of audience, and then I got to know Dr. Matthew Perry. I made this a Perry video, and then I received an email from Matthew Perry, and then I was like, "What? Did I receive a Commodore Matthew Perry?" And then I was shocked. But this was Dr. Matthew Perry I received an email from, and then he's been very, very nice and very friendly to me, and then he invited us to come to the 4th of July party, and then I am very, very grateful to Dr. Matthew Perry. So, and then I really want to be able to connect to people and then make it into a community, and then build a community of peace and friendship. That's what I did in the high school, and then we did the Sakura Festival, and then I was very well appreciated and well received. So I'm retired. I'm a retired teacher, but I would like to continuously doing a lot of different things to connect and then teaching Japanese culture and things. So どうぞよろしくお願いします。 ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございます。
本当に感謝感謝。ありがとうございました。
Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you to both of you, Mimi and Matt, for an incredible webinar. This was so rich and delightful. And I just want to also express my appreciation to all of those people who helped with this. I know there were countless individuals. I see many of their names on the screen here who played a very important role in making tonight's webinar happen. So thank you to all of them. Thanks to our special guests. Thank you to the audience for sticking with us. And once again, I hope you'll take Matt on for this offer to head to Japan for the Grassroots Summit. With that, we'll call it a night, but thank you all so much for coming. There's some great comments in the chat. Everyone is expressing their appreciation. Thanks so much, everyone.
ありがとうございまし
ありがとうございま
た。
す
おやすみなさい。Have a good day to Japan. Good night to America.
Ohio to Japan.
Bye-bye, everyone.